Michigan State Police are warning the public tonight about a fraudulent letter circulating that falsely claims to be from MSP headquarters. According to officials, the letter requests money for clearance, processing, or the release of funds or debit card information. State police say these letters are fake and stress that police will never ask for money to clear documents or release financial assets. Officials say red flags include requests for advance payment, bad grammar, and urgent claims about releasing funds. Anyone who gets one of these letters is told not to send money or share any personal information. Up north in